What is up, guys? Delboy here. Hope you guys are doing well. A quick preview and prediction of this weekend's big fight between Saul Canelo Alvarez and Danny Jacobs. This fight is a middleweight unification. Canelo's WBA and WBC titles will be on the line, as will Danny Jacobs' IBF belt. The fight will be shown on regular Sky Sports in the UK, and in the USA it will be shown on Dazn, and I have to say, I am really looking forward to this fight now. It's certainly one of the better fights this year so far. But let's briefly talk about both guys, the stats, the attributes, etc. Canelo Alvarez, he has a record of 51 wins, 1 defeat, 2 draws, 35 of those 51 wins coming by way of knockout, whereas Danny Jacobs has a record of 35 wins, 2 defeats, 0 draws, 29 of those 35 wins coming by way of knockout. Canelo Alvarez is listed as 5'8" with a 70.5-inch reach, whereas Danny Jacobs is listed as 5'11.5" with a 73-inch reach. So Danny Jacobs has a 3.5-inch height advantage as well as a 2.5-inch reach advantage, and maybe that could play a factor in the bout. Going into the fight, who do I make a favourite? It has to be Canelo Alvarez, because let's be honest about it, we will start with the negatives. Even if Canelo Alvarez loses this fight 7-5, we all know the deal. We all know that the judges will score it to Canelo Alvarez. Even if he loses this fight on most fans' scorecards in a close fight, the judges are going to give it to Canelo Alvarez. Anything close will go to Canelo Alvarez, and everything is stacked in his favour. So naturally, because of that, I make him favourite. And not only that, he is a more well-rounded, more talented fighter than Danny Jacobs. So I do make Canelo Alvarez a favourite. Not a huge favourite, but a big enough favourite, to be honest with you. And to me, this fight is interesting from the Danny Jacobs perspective. How does he approach this fight? Does he get aggressive? Does he know in the back of his mind he needs to get a knockout to win? Is he concerned about leaving it in the judges' hands? If so, maybe we see a more aggressive Danny Jacobs, similar to the one we saw against Peter Quillin, where he came out all guns blazing, looking for the knockout. Maybe he will try to take the fight to Canelo and try to make most of his power punches and knock Canelo out. If he does that, obviously Jacobs has a chance. Canelo has been hurt in the past. He got hurt in the second Golovkin fight. He got hurt earlier on in his career against Miguel Cotto's brother. So it's not like Danny Jacobs knocking out Canelo isn't a possibility, I guess, but I don't really think fighting that type of fight suits him, because ultimately, yes, Canelo has been hurt a couple of times, but for the most part, he's always shown a very good chin, and not only that, he also has very good defense. So if Danny Jacobs is winging away, looking for the knockout, I wouldn't be surprised to see Canelo make him miss and make him pay. Canelo is a very good counterpuncher, he's very accurate, and he's very quick with his counterpunches, and he can knock you out with those counters. We saw with the likes of James Kirkland, when James Kirkland tried to press the action against Canelo Alvarez, we saw what happened. James Kirkland got lit up like a Christmas tree. And Danny Jacobs, when he gets aggressive, he can, I wouldn't say get reckless, but he loses his shape. He throws some wide punches. Sometimes he'll be a bit wild and inaccurate. And in those moments, it gives a master counterpuncher like Canelo ample opportunity to land those big counter shots and maybe even get the knockout himself. So if Jacobs is aggressive, he could end up getting himself knocked out, to be completely honest. Because like I said, when Jacobs unloads, when he gets aggressive, he does make a few mistakes defensively. And Jacobs has a mistake in him at the best of times. Sometimes he'll get a little bit erratic and, throw a silly shot. So, for example, you go back to the Dmitry Pirog fight where he throws a jab out of range and Pirog comes back, with a lovely overhand right counter, and it ended up knocking out Danny Jacobs in that fight. So if Jacobs gets aggressive, yes, he has a chance, but I expect him to make mistakes, and I expect him to get countered to death by Canelo Alvarez. Because ultimately, even when Jacobs isn't aggressive, he does have a mistake in him. He can box well, he's a great athlete, he's a good puncher, you know, he can stick and move, he's got good attributes, but he does make a mistake, and being more aggressive will only bring further mistakes out in him. So yeah, as a fan, we would love to see a tear-up, we would love to see Jacobs get aggressive, but I don't think that's his best strategy. For Danny Jacobs, I would like to see him utilise his athletic ability, his foot speed, his reach, his length. That's what I want to see. I want to see Danny Jacobs actually fight similar to how he fought Golovkin, but be a bit more active with the jab. If Jacobs can backpedal, firing a consistent hard jab, then I believe he can give Canelo problems. Canelo, one of his main faults is slow feet. When he's fighting a guy who can stick and move, he does struggle at times. He struggles to cut the ring off if you are quick on your feet and can stick and move and can turn him. If Jacobs can fight a similar fight to that, I do believe he will give Canelo Alvarez a lot of problems. I believe he has the athleticism, foot speed, hand speed and jab to do so. It's just really whether he can win the rounds clear enough to win the fight. You know, he needs to win multiple rounds extremely clearly. Can he do that against Canelo Alvarez? That remains to be seen, but I do believe his style, if he is boxing on the back foot like he did against Golovkin, I do believe he will give Canelo problems, because everybody who's fought that style at a high level, they've given Canelo problems. You go back to obviously Mayweather, the most obvious example where he lost a clear fight. But not only that, the Lara fight, which was very debatable, the Austin Trout fight, which again, some people out there thought Trout won, and even the Cotto fight, yes, Alvarez won, but Cotto's movement gave Canelo problems, it really did. So maybe that's the blueprint Jacobs needs to follow. But like I said, I go back to it again. The only issue with Jacobs fighting that type of fight is, even if we think he wins the fight, 7-5, maybe even 8-4, there's no guarantee he's going to get it on the scorecards. In fact, history tells us otherwise, because many people, many fans, have had Canelo losing fights. He's either won or drawn on paper. So there is that to consider. We have to consider the judges. I hate to bring it up. I know people out there may think I'm hating on Canelo, but it's real. It's a real concern. And that's the thing with Danny Jacobs, is that playing on his mind? Because fighting aggressively, going for the knockout, I think would be suicide for him. Yes, he's got a puncher's chance, but given Jacobs' defensive flaws when he's aggressive, I think that's a totally wrong fight for him. But at the same time, if he boxes on his back foot, uses that jab, wins most of the rounds but gets robbed, people are going to say, well, do you know what? You knew you can't get a decision anyway. You should have been more aggressive. So what's Danny Jacobs' head saying right now? Is he stuck between two minds? I think that could be a real possibility. I think that must be a dilemma you have when you face Canelo, because the deck is stacked in his favour. I'm going to keep on saying it. It really is. But regardless, by hook or by crook, or even by a fair means, I believe Canelo wins this fight. Ultimately, I believe he has more tools in the toolbox. He's a better combination puncher. He's a better counter puncher. He's a better natural boxer. He's a better defensive boxer. I just believe he's a more high-level fighter than Danny Jacobs. But Danny Jacobs' best attributes can give Canelo problems. But I expect Canelo to land a lot of effective counter punches, particularly with his right hand. Sometimes Jacobs' punches are a bit wide, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Canelo counter between those shots with that right hand. Also, Canelo has got a lovely counter left hook, which I believe Danny Jacobs is open for. I just believe Canelo will land the clearer, harder shots, and that will either lead to a knockout or a points win. I'm not sure whether Canelo knocks Jacobs out, but I think he'll get the decision certainly, and he will wind up winning this fight. Ultimately, I believe Canelo is a better fighter, and not only that, like I said earlier, he has everything in his favour. So it's a great fight on paper. It really is. But I expect Canelo Alvarez to do the job. I'll be honest, usually on this channel we stay fairly down the middle. We do. But I would love Danny Jacobs to win this fight. I really would. I think boxing needs the shake-up. I think Canelo does have things his own way a bit too much. And I would like to see Danny Jacobs get the win, to be honest with you. But that's just my opinion. Share your thoughts below. Peace.